for our feature presentation.
He'll be fire on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the all-new JB and Goldwater app, and also at jbandgoldwatershow.com as well. If you're watching to the right of your screen, that is Darren Goldwater. I am to the left, and as I throw my sunglasses out of the picture here, we're here until 2 o'clock this afternoon. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It is also our text line. Breaking news in just one moment. Hang with us because this is significant in the Southeastern Conference. Across all social media platforms, at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Radio JB, and at Darren Goldwater. We do have Wes Mitchell coming up today at 12:30 with Gamecock Central. We'll make him a part of this new news as well. We've got Perry Orth at 1:30 today. We got the NFL weekend results. What a great weekend it was in the NFL. Crazy weekend in hoops. South Carolina and Clemson both had major contests. Both lost. One of them went a little bit better for one than the other. We've got a whole update on South Carolina hoops to get to. We got some college baseball to get to today as well. Staff changes at Clemson. Staff changes at South Carolina. An update on the offensive line coaching situation, and much, much more. So the next 2 hours will be jam-packed around here, Darren. But as I bring you in here, I also give you the news that is now, it seems, official in Knoxville from Pete Thamel. Literally, as the intro was playing, I looked at Darren and said, here we go. We thought it was coming, and it did. Tennessee, according to Pete Thamel, will be parting ways with Coach Jeremy Pruitt today. AD Phil Fulmer's future will also be addressed, according to Pete Thamel. So this is significant news in the Southeastern Conference. Now, as I get you into this conversation, first of all, hope you had a wonderful weekend. We hope you all did as well.
Yes, absolutely.
This is, we thought this was coming, and we talked with multiple people last week, and we all thought this was coming. By the way, this is neat. I just saw this pop up on the screen here. Harold Waynick listening to our program today. His grandson is Nathan, who we had on our program a couple of weeks back, and his story aired on NBC News on Saturday evening. The walk-on from Sumter High School and the Waynick family. Just what a amazing story. So Papa Waynick is how everybody knows him. Hey, Papa Waynick, thank you so much for listening to our program and for watching our program as well. So, Darren, this is significant.
Yes.
We'll see what comes with Phil Fulmer and his future, but I don't know how this is all going to interlock and intertwine the rest of the league and things of that nature. But your early thoughts on this breaking news here?
Well, just like you said, this isn't a surprise that it happened. We've been assuming that this is where it's going. We talked with our friends from down in Knoxville. That was their sense. Josh Pate had something out over the weekend, and basically he was saying it's a matter of if, not a matter of when. I'm sorry, the other way around. It's a matter of when, not a matter of if it is going to happen. This is the first I've heard Phil Fulmer tied into it, however. So yeah. I think that becomes interesting, but keep in mind, the reason they're kind of in more of a sticky situation than they had been is because he got an extension, Jeremy Pruitt did, at the very beginning of the year.
Right.
I think it was the week of the South Carolina game. So that ties Phil Fulmer back into this if those the powers that be in Knoxville want to tie him into it.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different angles to discuss this situation here in Knoxville. As you mentioned, Phil Fulmer, this is something we had not necessarily heard. So one of my first questions is, are they in a lot more trouble than what we have been thinking over the last couple of weeks with some of these allegations of recruiting violations and things of that nature? Is there much more to this than what we understand it to be at this point in time? That's question number one. Question two is, who's in charge of this? Is it the president? Is it the board of trustees? Are they just done with Phil Fulmer, or do they not trust him to make another hire? Are there other things he's done as AD that are in question by the powers in Knoxville? I don't have those answers, but you can't help but speculate.
Right. We're going to get some of those answers if Phil Fulmer is going to be addressed when the Jeremy Pruitt situation is addressed as well. Keep in mind, remember they were in a hiring freeze a couple of days ago, and then in the midst of a hiring freeze, they hired somebody without ever saying they were not in a hiring freeze. They hired Kevin Steele.
Yeah, Kevin Steele.
So who hired him? Did Pruitt hire him, or did Phil Fulmer hire him? Or did...
we don't know.
No, we don't know. Or did someone else with power make that move? He wasn't given an official title. I wasn't aware of this, but Josh Pate had this. Pruitt and Steele are very, very good friends. So Josh alluded to the fact that maybe this is... Pruitt kind of doing one of his buddies a solid, bringing him in, knowing he might not be on sound ground, but then setting the table for Steele to take over because they're so close. That was just a guess on Josh Pate's part, but it's interesting that they are as close as they are and now wrapped up in this really odd situation.
But we'll have to try, and at this point in time, we don't have a prayer at getting him on here the next couple of hours, but we'll have to get Mike Wilson with us sometime in the next couple of days if we can, our friend from the Knoxville News Sentinel, who covers Tennessee athletics as well as anybody up there. But yeah, you're right. And I would venture a guess. I mean, again, this is all speculation on my part at this point in time, but I would venture a guess that if there is some thought that Kevin Steele was brought in with the anticipation or possibility that Jeremy Pruitt could be out in the future and that he was just going to take over the program, I can't imagine that makes Vol football fans incredibly happy. I'm not trying to knock Kevin Steele professionally or personally, but there are some pretty good coaching candidates out there who I think Tennessee people might be a little bit more interested in than Kevin Steele at this point in time. Again, that's all speculation on my part in particular. I'm not saying that's exactly why or not, but we just don't have any answers yet to some of the decisions that have been made in Tennessee, and right now it just doesn't look good.
And is it Hugh Freeze? Because it seems like there's chatter from outside for Freeze.
And that's where I was going next. Phil Fulmer and Hugh Freeze do not have a good relationship.
No.
And they haven't for years. And so if his future is being speculated upon, if there's a change maybe coming for Phil Fulmer as well, that might be opening the door.
That makes a lot of sense, because the chatter from outside is, well, obviously Hugh Freeze, but inside it's not so obviously Hugh Freeze at all.
Not if Phil Fulmer is standing there.
Right. Not at all. But that's a very good point. If they're going to usher both of them out, then the door is open for Hugh Freeze.
Right.
Yeah.
I would think so. I mean, you've got, even though there's been some strange statements out of his camp in the last couple of weeks. I mean, you got Billy Napier, who's been a hot commodity in the coaching circles, but he's issued some statements that he's turned down all these gigs. I mean, he was never offered the Carolina gig. And as far as I know, he wasn't offered the gig at Auburn either. But it's essentially, well, he's looking for plays who will let him do what he wants to do. And yeah, we're not getting into all that. But there are some good candidates out there. And the Hugh Freeze thing is very interesting to me. If Phil Fulmer is in some way, shape, or form not going to be moving forward as the AD in Knoxville.
Yeah.
So
and that changes things. That changes things dramatically right there without Phil Fulmer. And it seems as though they are, the at least the headlines of what's now flowing through the news cycle seemed to tie Phil Fulmer in with Jeremy Pruitt and the words like the end is near type thing.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? We'll see. We'll have to see what happens here later today, but this changes the dynamics. I mean, we expected Pruitt. Pruitt nearing an end here is not a surprise. This was a matter of when is this going to happen, not is it going to happen.
Yeah, so here's the thing, too. Jeremy Pruitt went 16-19 in his tenure in Knoxville, if this comes to fruition, which, again, is expected to here at some point in time today. So, obviously, it wasn't a very successful 3 years as the head football coach. And this year, 3-7 after starting the year 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
So a 1-7 finish to the season. So obviously the results speak for themselves. But the question that I have asked, and you have as well, and we spoke with Mike Wilson about this when he was on our program, about a week ago or so maybe, was if you were planning to make a move, make it.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't get anything like that. There was this, which these backdoor
channels,
supportive these odd in today's world supportive statements that are issued oftentimes by athletics directors and universities in support of their coaches generally mean nothing.
The vote of confidence.
Yeah, it's just junk. It's gibberish. But we heard that. But where I tie all this in is literally 2 weeks ago, you and I started speculating quickly amongst many others. We're not experts. But our brains were turned on like all of you and saying, well, now wait a second. Why are you hiring these two very high-profile lawyers, one of whom which was integral in getting rid of Bruce Pearl in Knoxville? Why are you hiring these guys over recruiting violations? Because that's what came out. Well, they're recruiting violations. They're going through the process or in the midst of an internal investigation. Yada yada yada. We see this every year. This is pretty simple. All right. You investigate, you try to get it done before the NCAA wants to put their hands in the cookie jar. You turn over your results, you issue yourself a couple of penalties, and then you hope that the NCAA accepts those penalties and you move forward. And if they don't, or if they've already gotten involved, then you have to just wait until the process is done. And whatever they find, if there's something significant there and you have to go in and make a change, and you go in and make a change. But it is very rare to see, and we talked to Mike about this, it's very rare to see a school hire high-profile attorneys to protect themselves from their own internal investigation involving recruiting violations. So the thought all along was, between you and I having conversations on our program here, the thought all along was, all right, they're trying to figure out an angle here to get rid of Jeremy Pruitt and not have to pay a $12+ million buyout. And maybe the time has come. Maybe they found that. Maybe they figured that out. Maybe they finally negotiated with Pruitt to figure out a way to do it. Maybe they haven't negotiated. We don't know the answer. But then you bring Phil Fulmer into this as well. Maybe those attorneys weren't just there for Jeremy Pruitt.
Bingo. If Fulmer's getting tied into this, and this is what Mike Wilson was saying, that if the lawyers are involved, I mean, all three of us were on the same page. What it appears as though, who knows for sure, it appears these guys are there, the lawyers, to find a way for Tennessee to get out of this thing without having to pay.
Yeah.
So maybe they uncovered something that said, here's a way to do it. If you tie the two of these guys together, that's one way to do it. But I think the other obvious, I don't know if carrot is the right word, but something dangling here outside of this little circle of conversation is the Fulmer and Hugh Freeze tie or lack thereof. Yeah. Because, that was your first thought right there. If Fulmer is getting ushered the door, then the door for Hugh Freeze seems to be opening, coinciding with it shutting on Fulmer. Is that where they're going? I don't know, but it certainly opens that door.
Yeah. This is really a jumbled mess. It really is. If you go back to the start of the college football season, it at that point in time appeared that everybody essentially had a year, and that has been anything but the truth. In college football, there is just too much money, and there's too much urgency to win and win right now, and we're finding that out. We started figuring that out towards the end of the year, and of course now here we are, another SEC opening, and you know what? You and I, back in props to this program. I don't say that often, actually ever, but props to this program, because back in early October we nailed all of them, every single one of them. we said, okay, if there are changes, what changes could possibly happen? South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Auburn, Tennessee were the top 4, and they're all spot on. The only other one I mentioned, which is not happening at all, but it maybe was a possibility, was Kentucky.
Right.
And there's enough there moving forward that people feel up there in the Bluegrass State that the Wildcats are actually going to be okay again under Mark Stoops. But yeah, this is just really, really, really fascinating news to lead off with here. Tyler, nice comment, and I don't disagree with him. How are you going to fire Pruitt for recruiting violations and then be like, yeah, Hugh Freeze is our guy? Hey, man. Look, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with a word there. I guess the only thing that I would say in contrast to that statement is there's been a lot of time that's been between Hugh Freeze and what happened at Ole Miss and now, and things appear to have leveled off with him and his career, and so we'll see what happens. But yeah, fascinating news. We'll see how the rest of this, for Carolina fans specifically, and we'll talk to Wes about this coming up in 15 minutes. For South Carolina fans specifically, I don't blame any of you if it's the, oh my God, here we go again. Could there be another coach named to another school who is going to target some of the staff members we have at South Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
I would also say this. It probably isn't going to affect any of the guys that are on staff, honestly. I mean, the newest batch of hires, they've all signed their deals now. You're going to have to pay a buyout with them, but that's not even why. I think that Shane now has gotten to a point where the staff is the staff at South Carolina, with the exception of the offensive line coach. That we'll find out who that is hopefully pretty soon. And I don't see this interrupting what has transpired in Columbia.
It's a very different staff now than it was when he first announced the basics of the staff, right? I mean, the guys that you have in place, Satterfield and Bobo, are very, very different. Satterfield fits with the Gamecocks because of his relationship with Beamer, because of his personality, because, like you said, that bunker mentality. Satterfield fits. Plucking Satterfield to Tennessee, unless there's a relationship that's better than Beamer with whoever comes in to coach, then it doesn't make sense. And that's the same across the board for the new guys that Beamer has brought in.
Yeah. Don't foresee anything like that at this point in time, but my gosh, are we early? So speculating is really childish on my part, but that, just wanted to throw that out there quickly. And then we'll see what candidates are out there for Tennessee. Maybe there's an internal candidate. Keep in mind, T. Martin is on this staff, a guy who, won a national championship there. He's the assistant head coach right now, passing game coordinator, wide receivers coach, came from Southern Cal, has a wealth of experience. Maybe he's an internal candidate, maybe Kevin Steele, as you already mentioned. And then we'll just have to see what others float around, like Hugh Freeze and like Billy Napier and
Chadwell.
Jamie Chadwell.
Yep.
And Jamie Chadwell. That's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's a guy that would be considered a home run in the eyes of fans up there. I don't know. I have no idea.
Nope.
But Chadwell's an East Tennessee guy, and that might be intriguing to him, and we'll see what happens.
Yep. Don't forget, Dog and Duck, 3 locations in Mount Pleasant, in Park West, Bell Hall, and on Clements Ferry Road. Trivia night is back. In fact, it's family bingo night. So Monday night, get gifts for the kids. Always a fun time. I think it starts at 6.
Starts 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I think so.
Dog and Duck, 3 locations.
There you go.
All right, 12:20 here on a Monday afternoon, the JB and Goldwater show. You can text as well, 843-321-8893, and you can also pick up the phone and give us a call if you'd like to. You got a few minutes to get those calls and texts in. We do have Wes Mitchell coming up in about 10 minutes on our program. Perry Orth will follow this afternoon at 1:30. The breaking news again, Jeremy Pruitt appears, according to Pete Thamel, out in Knoxville. We'll come back to it here in just a few moments. Also official in Columbus, Ohio, Justin Fields has declared for the NFL draft, and he will move forward. Speaking of the NFL, what a weekend it was in the National Football League. It was fun to watch. It just was fun to watch. Saturday, the Packers beat the Rams 32-18. They're back in the NFC Championship game, and they're going to get a chance at Tom Brady. In the Bucs 30-20, Brady, this is his 14th appearance. 14th appearance in a championship game. First in the NFC, though, because he spent the last 13 in the AFC with the New England Patriots. But a 30-20 win yesterday. It looks like the career of Drew Brees probably going to be over. Tough day in New Orleans. 3 picks for him. Former Gamecock Jared Cook with an enormous fumble when they were up 6 points, a little over halfway through the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
in that one there. You had the Chiefs holding on against the Browns with a remarkable 4th down call by Andy Reid. And, Pat Mahomes goes down. He's in concussion protocol. You got Chad Henne in there. No one thinks they're going to snap it. Tony Romo about fell out of his chair on national television. Chiefs win that one. The Bills' defense was just remarkable. And I know the Chiefs are moving forward. I know that Tom Brady is moving forward, but the Bucs is the team there. I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again. I have felt great about the NFL playoffs because there's been fresh blood in there. The Bills, the Browns, the Buccaneers in there. I mean, this has been, for me, at least personally, really, really neat to watch, to see a couple of different programs. And Buffalo Bills are 1 game away from the Super Bowl, guys.
It's amazing that you're sitting here thinking Buffalo is 1 game away and has every chance in the world to win that game. Remember, the Chiefs now have not covered in 9 straight weeks. They are not blowing people out. We don't know the status of Mahomes, although you can guess he's probably going to play unless there's something shocking, right, that keeps him out, or his concussion is quite significant. But you can expect that he's going to play. But it's wild to see Buffalo right on the brink. It's easy to make the statement that Buffalo is the best team remaining right now because they certainly have looked the best over these last couple of weeks. But it's been fun. The playoffs have been fun. Like you said, the new blood, it keeps you energized a little bit, gives you a reason to watch. It's the opposite of what we're seeing in college football. It's not just Clemson and Alabama and Notre Dame all the time. Here are the Bills, the Browns, right? I mean, like Tampa Bay all of a sudden, even though they have Tom Brady now, obviously. But the differences are fun to see.
Not to jump off here, but we do already have an update in Knoxville. I want to get back to this, and we'll come back to the NFL when we can here. A couple of reports out. One by Knox News, Blake Topmeyer has reported this with the Knoxville News Sentinel, that Jeremy Pruitt has been fired for cause for alleged NCAA violations under his watch. I am reading this word for word from knoxnews.com. Again, Blake Topmeyer, colleague of our friend Mike Wilson with the Knoxville News Sentinel. Pruitt was fired for cause Monday for alleged NCAA violations under his watch, according to University of Tennessee sources with knowledge of the situation, meaning the university will not pay his buyout. So there you go. And his buyout was a little bit over $12 million, Darren. I think 12.6 or something like that. So obviously this situation with their attorneys over the last few weeks, they've been really digging here, and they found a way to oust him without having to pay him a penny. Additionally, athletics director Philip Fulmer will retire, sources said, after Tennessee hires an athletics director to replace him because he wants a successor to choose the next football coach. Fulmer made the decision to step down, and his departure is not tied to the investigation. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, so that look, not to be a conspiracy theorist, that didn't pass the smell test
at all. So you're just going to happen to retire at the same time that your investigation for cause has found cause. Don't.
Well, I mean,
no, you're not just happening to retire at that point. There's something else going on. He could very well have been told, listen, you're not going to be the guy who's going to make our next hire, so you can walk away on your own, or you can be a part of this.
Or you can be a part of it.
Yes.
Well, and Kevin Steele was just hired. He's going to serve as the interim head coach moving forward, as the, quote, interim head coach. And you can bet every penny you've got, if you find more in the couch if you can, that he's going to do everything in his power to make himself a viable candidate for this job in Knoxville. Sorry, I'm sitting here trying to kind of get caught up on this. But if you try to connect the dots here, Phil Fulmer retiring, Kevin Steele hired last week, Jeremy being Pruitt fired for cause. They saw this coming. Additional information, Pruitt's contract includes more than 34 fire for cause provisions. Among them, he can be fired for cause if he engaged in conduct likely to result in an NCAA finding of a level 1 or 2 rules violation. So he could be fired if he himself engaged in conduct that would likely result in level 1 or level 2 violations, or if someone who reports to Pruitt engaged in either one of those as well. So obviously whatever's coming down the pike for Tennessee, they feel is level 1 or level 2
Or they have enough that they can argue that successfully in court that it would, quote, likely lead to that.
Yeah, I mean, 34 fire for cause provisions is I don't know if I've ever seen that.
I don't know how many are typically in it, but the wording of that is what really caught me, because if it's determined that his actions likely would result in something. So you don't have to prove that it would. You have to prove that it likely would. Because this will go to court. Right, because Pruitt's going to come back to him and say, no, I'm going to get my money. So litigation is going to come from all of this. So all they need to do is argue their case that it likely would go to that point.
Yeah, and this is amidst an internal investigation. This is nothing that has been turned over by the NCAA. This is nothing that the NCAA has deemed level 1 or level 2 at this point in time. Nothing.
No.
This is an internal investigation. So obviously they're anticipating some type of damages moving forward as it pertains to recruiting violations.
They're going to have to report something additional, right? Because if they're at this point that they're going to fire him for cause, then you would expect Tennessee to report something and penalize themselves somehow and hope that the NCAA accepts that penalty.
Right. Yeah. He also can be fired for a failure to promote and maintain an atmosphere of compliance, which obviously those tie in, or failure to monitor. And we all know what that is. Failure to monitor basically your coaches, your employees, your student athletes, or whatever. So there is information trickling out from sources that certainly we trust, and they're publishing this information. So you all have access to it if you so wish to have it. In addition to that, John Talty, who covers the SEC. He's an SEC insider with AL.com. Says that Hugh Freeze is a name that's been associated with the Tennessee job for a while, but given the NCAA issues leading to Pruitt's dismissal, he says he can't see that happening. But Greg Sankey has to approve a hire like that, and I believe that he'd be probably not going to do that, at least under the circumstances. Kind of summarizing John's comments here.
As it pertains to Sankey, remember we went through this all a couple of weeks back with Hugh Freeze, and is there or is there not a directive coming from the SEC office saying you cannot hire Hugh Freeze? There was a sentiment that was there. Then we got into the coaching carousel days, and the sentiment was kind of being backed off a little bit, that, you know what, if someone wants to hire him, they probably would be able to hire him. And now here this is again saying Sankey may say no. I don't know where that stands. I don't know if anyone has a really good grasp as to whether or not Sankey in the SEC office has said Hugh Freeze is persona non grata. You can't touch him.
Yeah.
Don't know yet.
I tell you, we'll hit a timeout. When we return, we do have Wes Mitchell joining us with Gamecock Central, so we'll loop him into this conversation as well. We do want to get to some of the latest news at South Carolina as it pertains to their staff, some of the transfers coming into the program, an update on the offensive line coaching position, and things of that nature. So there's a lot to unpack here in the next 30 minutes or so with Wes Mitchell. So hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, protected by our friends at McFadden Pest Control. We'll be right back.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
You don't think? You don't think? But I don't think you should be butting in when I'm talking to my team. You're my assistant, okay? You're supposed to back me up and go get me juice boxes when I tell you. Now go get me a juice box.
You know who you're talking to.
I'm talking to the juice box guy.
You're crazy.
Now, JB and Goldwater, live in the Low Country.
That was a live look in Knoxville. Jeremy Pruitt, Kevin Steele. He hired the juice box guy right in time to be relieved of his duties up there. All right, welcome back to JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, 12:30 here on this Monday afternoon. Turned into a breaking news day quickly around here. Darren's to the right of your screen. I'm to the left. We're here till 2 o'clock, and joined actually now on the far right of your screen is Gamecock Central's Wes Mitchell, whom we brought in to discuss recruits, transfers, coaches, and much, much more at South Carolina. But Wes, we will lead off with you with the movement in Knoxville. It's been trending this way for quite some time. You know, there's no reason to have an internal investigation regarding recruiting violations and then hire a couple of high-profile attorneys to look into it. But the news now out that Jeremy Pruitt won't be back with Tennessee. Phil Fulmer also going to retire. Your initial thoughts on what's transpired up on Rocky Top?
Yeah, obviously huge news. It's been interesting this offseason. It seems like everything from a timing standpoint has been a little bit off compared to the normal timeline for stuff like this. Obviously, South Carolina sort of went early on their coaching change. Tennessee obviously goes a little bit late, and it'll be interesting to see how that affects their search and who's available and who's out there. And, you know, I will say the one weird thing about this is we sort of all thought there was a chance this would happen, you know, as of, I don't know, a few weeks ago. And then Tennessee starts, hiring new assistant coaches and bringing in Kevin Steele. And you're like, okay, why are you doing that if you're about to fire somebody? But it does become official today that they're starting over and that Phil Fulmer is retiring as well. So you essentially have an AD search and a head football coach search all at one time, which I think, if you think following an SEC football search is wild, with all the politics and all the different people that I'm sure are going to be pushing for their person in both of those roles, it could be an entertaining, at least I'm glad I'm on the outside looking in on this one. It could be an entertaining few weeks as far as our friends in Knoxville go.
Oh, man, no kidding, Wes. I mean, we just went through this in this state with Will Muschamp being let go in November, the process in which it took to get to Shane Beamer, and then we've watched, which we're going to get to here in a minute, we've watched the rest of this process, and as he's tried to complete his staff. We saw what happened in Auburn. We watched that ordeal kind of unfold, and Brian Harsin and all the hires he's made. We watched what happened up in Vanderbilt. How do you compare this situation specifically in Knoxville to those that have already transpired in the SEC, and bringing into that conversation the timeline? We're here in the middle of January, and they're also going to have to fill an AD chair as well. How do you compare all those?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, the first question for me is who's running their search or their searches. I think, is this a package deal? Or are you sort of going and hiring an AD and a coach that are potentially sort of tied together? Are you going to, if you're the president and the board up there, for Tennessee, are you hiring an AD and then letting that AD bring in their person? I don't think it really makes sense to hire, a head football coach and then an AD. It sort of has to match. So I think you're either hiring an AD and then letting him go get someone, or you're, sort of hiring an AD, and then as a group, president, new AD, and board, you're sort of trying to go hire the coach like that. But I don't know enough about the intricacies, like how everything works at Tennessee. But I would imagine you probably need to have a pretty good idea already, especially on the AD front, just so you can get that moving. But I would also think it's got to be somebody with some familiarity, with maybe some ties there. I don't know, because it's going to be very difficult for a new AD just to come in and have the lay of the land and then go hire, a football coach. So it'll be interesting to see how all these things play out, because generally, the football coaching hire is strongly connected to who your AD is and who they like and what they see as the important skill set, for a major head football coach. So this thing, it's going to go one of two ways, I imagine. Either they already just have 100%, people in mind, and there's maybe a behind the scenes deal already cut. Or if that's not the case, I could see this thing just getting absolutely wild and sort of playing out over a long period of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, and we're here too towards the end of the NFL season. You have to wonder if there's an NFL name or two that might be thrown around for this gig. Where does Jeff Fisher fit in? I know he was interested maybe in the Vanderbilt job. I don't know that that's a long-term answer for Tennessee. Do you have internal candidates? You might have one, since you just hired Kevin Steele. He's reportedly being named the quote interim coach, but he just got there. I mean, he might not have a job either if they hire somebody else who doesn't want him. There's T. Martin on that list. And then, a couple guys who were crossover candidates maybe between South Carolina and Clemson, South Carolina and Tennessee, although the timelines are different. You mentioned Jamie Chadwell earlier, Darren. I mentioned Hugh Freeze and Billy Napier. So I think there's a good list of folks out there, Wes. It'll just be really interesting to see how this works. And as you mentioned, it does appear they will hire an AD first and then hire a coach. But boy, they better hit the gas pedal, because you need to get a coach in. So if Phil Fulmer's retiring, they must have some kind of clue of who's going to fill those shoes.
Well, maybe that's on their case. I hope that they do, but you never know with these things, and you don't really know. Maybe the Fulmer retirement has been cooking for a while, or maybe it hasn't. I don't know. That would be very interesting. If you look at their last coaching search, I mean, it was an absolute dumpster fire. So I think the rest of the college football world and the rest of the SEC, especially the SEC East plus probably Alabama, they're all hoping for just an absolute, show to follow. And because it's been a mess, it seems like, in Knoxville for some time. And, you sort of almost expect chaos with this one.
Yeah, I certainly do. Let me ask you this final question as it pertains to this job, looping in South Carolina, and then we'll get into the Gamecock football program. All but one on-field hire have been made under Shane Beamer. Do you anticipate this change in Knoxville at this point in time with the coaches that we know are on staff at Carolina? Do you anticipate this next hire in any way affecting the coaching staff in Columbia?
No, I don't right now. I think it's so fresh. For one, South Carolina already tried to hire Tennessee's O-line coach, and he was here for 11 days.
They did.
So, there's obviously you're not the one spot left on South Carolina staff to fill would be O-line. So obviously they're not going that direction. To Tennessee's O-line coach. Could it affect it long-term down the road once you see who Tennessee hires? Is there, is it somebody that has some specific connection to a guy on South Carolina's staff? You can never, in this day and age of college football, you can never rule that out. But, right here today, not even knowing who the candidates are going to be there. And, I don't guess I foresee anybody at South Carolina right now being in the running for the head job there. So I don't think there's not any known connections that you can go ahead and make, at this point in time.
Yeah, we just don't know enough. Certainly, I was alluding to the fact that South Carolina fans might have a little PTSD with the fact that what just happened at Auburn, essentially, what just happened at Auburn. Yeah, I guess you can never say never, but just based on what we know about the coaches in place now in Columbia, it appears that Shane Beamer pretty much has this thing almost wrapped up, and these guys all want to be here. Their deals are signed. They're here. Let's move forward. All right, so let's try to do that. You mind moving forward with us, Wes? That's what we actually
Let's do it.
All right, so over the last couple of days, a couple of little nuggets to plug in here, which pretty much everybody already knows about, but wanted to get your thoughts and maybe some of the backstory on some of this. Shaq Wilson coming home, and I wanted to expand on that and ask you, do you have any idea as to what role he will actually inherit at South Carolina? And also Drew Hughes is going to be moving on to Austin, Texas. I've heard for a couple of weeks that there could be nothing, I don't mean this in a bad way, but there could be some reshuffling of position groups within the program at South Carolina, off-field roles and things like that. Shane just has a different way that he wants to kind of do some things. So it's not a shock to me to see Drew Hughes maybe move on and take a similar role at Texas. But your thoughts on both of those and where we stand today?
Yeah, Shaq coming back to Columbia. I think it took a little bit longer than Byron Gerardo just because Gerardo, was on the strength staff at Tennessee and is going to be on the strength staff at South Carolina with Shaq Wilson. From what I understand, I don't know the exact details yet. That's going to be more of an analyst role. So Shane Beamer, I think, was working through some things. How's that going to work? How's that going to be structured? And it sounds like Shaq maybe wants to get a little bit more to the coaching side as far as like actual football versus strength stuff. So that's sort of the way I think they have him set up there, which will be good for him. Here Shaq was very involved with recruiting, and I think at the time he really wanted to be more on the football side of things. So that will allow him to do that. And then Drew Hughes, he's a guy that's very well respected. He's been at Tennessee, he's been at Florida, been at NC State, UCF, and was actually retained by Shane Beamer. He was going to be kept on, and was a guy that had really just busted his tail to sort of help the transition from one staff to the next. There was a time when, I think it seemed like Drew Hughes, his support staff, and then maybe Des Kitchings, a couple of other guys were like the only people sort of holding the glue together basically when they were making this staff transition. And so that'll be a loss for South Carolina. I've seen some people say, well, how much of a loss can it be? Well, I think you got to remember Drew Hughes has only been here for a year. So anything on the field, you can't blame Drew Hughes for any of the recruiting issues on the field, because he's only been here for exactly 1 year. So, he's a guy that I think they'll miss, but Texas, that was just too big of an opportunity, I think, for him and his family. It was very hard. From what I understand, I think he turned it down at first, and then they came back and just made an offer he couldn't refuse. So, Shane will go out, he'll get his guy. I think you're right. You maybe restructure some things there. Maybe every coach has their way of sort of doing things that can be a little bit different than every other coach. So I'm sure Beamer will probably look back at, all the way back his time at South Carolina, his time at Georgia, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma, and decide what he likes best as far as structuring that thing. But I'd imagine not necessarily in that role, but I do think you're going to continue to see Shane Beamer look back to former Gamecock players and try to add them in a lot of these off the field support type roles.
On Twitter at Wes Mitchell GC, Wes Mitchell 1244 on a Monday afternoon, joining us from Gamecock Central. Yeah, and that's and what I meant by that when I say, I've talked to a couple folks who have communicated with Coach Beamer about how some of the restructuring would work behind the scenes, and I didn't mean anything like Drew Hughes wasn't going to be retained or he was being demoted or nothing like that. Not actually, if anything, he probably have a little bit of a better role at South Carolina. He is that well respected, as Wes just alluded to. His job was director of player personnel. Wes, what is that job? I'm not necessarily asking you what type of candidates are out there because we don't know right now, but what is that role in the Gamecocks football program?
So it's a lot of overseeing, it's a lot of structuring, it's a lot of making sure that that everything is sort of taken account for. And what I mean by that is if you have, all right, you have your 10 assistants, right? And each of them has an area that they recruit, and each of them obviously has to take care of their position. Well, there are thousands and thousands of prospects in the country who want to be recruited and want to play college ball. And it is impossible, especially with all the on-the-field responsibilities of a coaching staff, for them to constantly be involved with recruiting, right? So Drew Hughes' job is basically to be on top of it all. He's got all the background information, the database, basically the recruiting board. His job is to structure all of that. And, he's not going to necessarily say, hey, I'm offering this guy, I'm offering this guy, I'm offering this guy. He's going to more say, hey, Coach Satterfield, here are 5 quarterbacks that I think match what you're looking for when you get a chance. I've already sort of checked some boxes on this film. When you get a chance, check this out and see which ones you like the most. And so basically, if a coach is about to offer a kid and he needs to talk to the high school coach, and doesn't have a prior relationship with him, he might be like, Drew, I need Coach so-and-so's contact. Get him on the phone for me. So it's really just an all-encompassing, just a constant. There's a reason those guys are well paid, because it is a nonstop job. Recruiting never ends. And really the amount of stuff you have to do in that role is pretty heavy. I mean, you're contacting kids once that's legal as far as the particular classes, and how old they are. Basically, you can contact them at a certain point over like Twitter and stuff like that. And you have to be, I would say, very well organized if you're going to be in that role, and have a great idea for the footprint of your recruiting territories and of your doing roster management, making sure you have the right amount of guys at each position. And obviously your head coach is going to sort of be like, hey, I like to keep 3 quarterbacks. I like to keep 5 tight ends. Every coach is going to have their sort of standard for those positions, but it's just to really sort of make sure everything's organized as far as all that goes.
Is this a position, Wes, that generally is filled by somebody with experience at this level?
Yeah, I would say you look at 2. There's probably, just like anything, there's 2 main options here. That would be go out, find someone that is in that current role, it may be a smaller school, quote unquote, and move them on up. Or, you'd look in-house basically and see if there's somebody at South Carolina right now that's in a support role, because that's part of it. So Drew Hughes also has a number of like assistants and student helpers that also would be working under him, because again, it's impossible to manage these thousands of prospects with just one person. So you could look to sort of give somebody a promotion that's already in-house, or a lot of times it's very similar to other spots where maybe, you look out who is an assistant director of recruiting or director of player personnel. They have, some places have different names for it, who's an assistant out there that is looking to get that promotion up to the next level. And, you bring him in, but, for example, maybe there's somebody at Oklahoma that was second in command that Shane Beamer really likes. And I'm not saying that is the case. I'm just giving you an example. You'd go out and say, hey, we want to make you the guy here and want you to sort of structure it like it was at Oklahoma. And that would be one route you could maybe take.
There's obviously been speculation. You've probably seen it on your board on Gamecock Central about Connor Shaw. Is this how different of a role is this from what Connor Shaw is currently in at South Carolina? We don't actually even know. We don't know exactly what Connor's doing, right? Exactly. But how different is this from what he's done at South Carolina?
Yeah, I would say it's very, very different from what he has done. Without talking to Connor, I'll make that completely clear. I imagine this is not up the alley of what Connor is wanting to do. This is I saw the post on our board. This is a completely different animal. Connor's role is more, at least it has been, player development as far as off the field, making sure everything in their life, from just personal health, mental health, personal finance, anything off the field that involves life skills, mentorship type stuff, having people come talk to the team. This is more this is roster management, basically. I think the biggest, if you just want to put it under one headline, every single thing that could be involved, think about like an NFL GM, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I could be dead wrong, but I think Connor wants to sort of gravitate more and more towards football and X's and O's and on-field development type stuff, and maybe eventually be an on-the-field, actual coach. To me, you got to be a recruiting head. Like, you got to be into this stuff to want to do this. So I'd imagine that's probably not the right fit here.
Well, I mean, a great example is what just happened at Vanderbilt. Clark Lee hired, Barton Simmons from 24/7 Sports, and people were like, "Wait, what? They're hiring who? That's this. That's what's going on here." So maybe a smart move up there by Clark Lee.
I mean,
in Nashville.
It's along the lines. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen some type of analyst get plucked from a media organization to then go work for a team or a school or something. I mean, you're seeing it not regularly, but it happens more now than it did.
Maybe that'll be Wes Mitchell. Maybe that'll be Wes.
Maybe you're next.
All right, Wes. Speaking of the players, and I'm directly referencing Wes Mitchell's column on Gamecock Central right now. It's titled "Tracking the Transfers." So if you are a subscriber to Gamecock Central, you probably already seen it. And if you're not, you should be. So you get to see all this stuff. And then we can come back and talk about it later on. Currently coming into Columbia, according to the expert himself, Mr. Mitchell, is Amarian Brown from Georgia Tech, David Spalding, corner out of Georgia Southern, Debo Williams, another Debo. He's coming from Delaware this time, though, linebacker. Jordan Strawn, the transfer linebacker, defensive end. We'll see what he does at Carolina, but led the nation in sacks this year, 10.5 of them coming from Sean Elliott in Georgia State. And Jakeem Green, and we'll get into him here in just a moment, defensive tackle from Nebraska, but he's from Sumter. And then a bunch of left, Keyshawn Toney, Joe Anderson, Keir Thomas, Deshaun Fenwick, Ryan Helinski, Johnny Dixon, Jamie Robinson, Shiloh Sanders, and Makia Scott. By the way, Helinski and Keyshawn Toney are the only two who have not landed somewhere just yet. So let's talk about some of these guys that are coming to South Carolina. And one thing I've noticed, Wes, and I really wanted your take specifically on this, is with the exception of Amarian Brown, none of them have come from Power 5. I mean, Keem Green's a Power 5 school, but he's not an all-conference player. He's not none of these guys are like the big names in the transfer portal. But when I look at some of them, like Jordan Strawn, like Debo Williams, like David Spalding, are they targeting some of the best players that they can, maybe at a level below the D1 level or something like that, guys who have maybe developed late and are looking for an opportunity to get a shot at this level of football? What type of kids are they searching for here?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for the best you can find, obviously, and in the portal you're going to have you have guys from all types of background. You're going to have some FCSs that have maybe outplayed their level, so to speak, or you're going to have, in some cases, some FBS guys that have played sparingly and are looking for an opportunity to play a little bit more. It's very, unless you're talking quarterbacks, and that's just because of the nature of the beast with quarterbacks, I would say there are very few proven FBS top talented guys that are in the portal, because most of those guys, if they're already upperclassmen and if they're that good and if they've contributed that much, there's no reason for them to transfer in the first place. And if they've already been there for 3 years, they're just going to go to the NFL as opposed to the portal. So that's sort of, now, I mean, teams obviously have been able to find here and there some FBS guys that have transferred. And again, quarterbacks is just a different animal. But I would say for South Carolina right now, you're still trying to create some buzz. You're still trying to get things going. Up until, recently, a lot of these positions, they didn't even know who their coaches were going to be, who the assistant coaches were going to be. So it was going to be hard to really build much recruiting momentum yet, but because of that fact. And South Carolina obviously still has got to hire their O-line coach as well. So, yeah, I think you look at all these guys. I mean, some of them, I have very high expectations for an Amarian Brown. He did play at the FBS level and was very, very good as a freshman. Georgia Tech had some quarterback problems when he was a sophomore last year. He didn't get targeted near as much as he probably should have. He'll come in and start day one. I think you look at, Debo Williams. This is a guy that had almost 500 tackles as a high school prep guy in Delaware, was just literally the best guy on the field pretty much every time he stepped on it in high school. He'll come in. He's still a freshman. He didn't get to play last year because their season was moved to the spring. So I don't want to put crazy expectations on him, but I think that's a sneaky good get. But then there's some other guys in here like the Spalding kid. I'm not as familiar with him. He came on a little bit strong late, but there's not really a huge track record there. But hey, let's be honest, y'all. In the secondary, South Carolina not only needs to find starters, they need to find depth. They need guys there. They need bodies. So this is a long kid, has some length, some speed. Maybe you're taking a little bit more of a chance because there's not that proven track record yet, but sometimes that's what you have to do. And then, I tell you, I got a little bit of heat from one of our fans on Gamecock Central that said that it was spin for me to say that Jordan Strong was the leading sacker in the country. He was the sack leader. I'm like,
what?
How's that?
It's a fact. It's a literal fact that he, had as many sacks as anybody in the country. So, we'll see how that translates to the SEC level. But I think this is a kid that you can move around. You can get on the edge. He's very quick, very long. It actually reminds me a little bit of somebody Carolina fans will probably remember in Arden Key that was committed to South Carolina twice and then ultimately ended up at LSU, signed with them. But, I think you can sort of see what South Carolina is trying to accomplish with these guys. Jakeem Green didn't play a lot at Nebraska, but is a very high upside kid. He's from the state of South Carolina. He'll get a fresh start here. And that was another position, y'all. I don't think interior defensive line was like a huge need, a month ago. But once you start losing some guys to the transfer portal, and you lose a Keir Thomas, you maybe sit there and say, okay, well, maybe we do. If you're South Carolina, you say maybe we do need to go out and get another defensive lineman. So that was the case there, obviously.
Well, I would remind folks real quick about Jordan Strachan as well. He played at Georgia State. And last I checked, Georgia State is still a part of the Sun Belt, right?
Yep.
Didn't we just spend an entire football season telling everybody how good the Sun Belt is? I mean, come on.
If you got 10.5 sacks,
dude,
then you know how to get after it.
10.5 sacks is 10.5 sacks.
Yeah.
I mean, period.
You know how to get home.
And he's got a great frame, Wes, 6'4", 225. I mean, he's a kid who Carolina could probably figure out a couple of different things to do. I'll be interested really to see what happens with him. Give us a quick update on the St. Francis guys. I know maybe hoping to hear some news maybe today, maybe even or early this week. Tell us who they are, what South Carolina likes about them, and when we could get an update on them possibly joining the program.
Yeah, Jason Brown, the quarterback there, EJ Jenkins, the receiver there, 6'8", which is crazy, and just a massive kid. And that they've played together since they were like 10 years old or something, I think. So they are a package deal in the truest sense of the word. And they're hoping to go to South Carolina. South Carolina is still waiting on admissions. Last I talked to Jason Brown, he said that it'd probably be a March 1 before they're able to enroll at South Carolina, because that's a sort of a, I don't know what they even call it anymore, like a mini semester type thing. You can enroll then, which not quite ideal, but beats the summer, I guess. So that's still sort of, I guess you'd say, in a holding pattern, but that's that's what we're looking at there. And like I said, both guys want to be Gamecocks, and both guys have offers. It's just a matter of getting everything sorted through from an admissions standpoint.
So one of them obviously is filling a need in terms of a hole of a scholarship quarterback. So if you're kind of in a holding pattern here till March 1, do the Gamecocks still go out and look for someone else at those two positions, or kind of sit back and hope that this is going to come through?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that if you're South Carolina, you will know probably pretty soon if they're going to be able to get in. The problem is there's a cutoff date for them to enroll. So I think on South Carolina's end, they should know, I would think by the end of the week. It would just be too late for them to enroll. So then you're really not waiting to March 1 as far as knowing that they can get in or not. It's more just when they literally will be able to enroll on campus. So I think for now, it sounds like they're willing to wait and see what happens there. But certainly, I think if you're South Carolina, you're always looking, right? Like you always have your eyes out there. And, the transfer portal does not end. I think it's something else to remember. So, yes, there might be guys that are in there right now, but certainly as the spring goes on and then guys go through spring practice and they're maybe not happy or they're still not happy, you're going to see guys pop up at the end of the spring as well. So if you're South Carolina, if you're any other school, you have to be very careful and give yourself a little bit of flexibility, save some scholarships, and then use them after the spring as well. So obviously if they get those two guys, that checks off the quarterback box and gives you another scholarship guy there. But I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be looking I'd be constantly refreshing the transfer portal, looking for wide receivers if I'm South Carolina.
Final quick question here. Any update? It's been really quiet. Any update at all on the offensive line coaching position?
No, I mean, there's a couple of guys we've been tracking. We mentioned the guy at Marshall, Greg Adkins. We mentioned him. He's a guy we've been tracking. There's another name or two that are sort of floating around behind the scenes. I've got a feeling we may, and I hesitate to say it, but I got a feeling we may be able to sort of put an end to this thing towards the middle of this week. But that's more just me reading between the lines type thing, trying to throw you something there as opposed to that being a fact. Obviously, we've seen this thing. Shane Beamer has proved he's going to move at his own pace to make the hire that he deems fit. So certainly he's going to continue to do that here and is not in a rush.
Oh, it makes you feel any better. I know a couple people, and I kind of feel the same way you do. We mentioned this last Thursday and Friday. So I think the beginning of this week we should know something. So maybe that makes me feel smart knowing that Wes says something.
Moving that way.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Coming up in an hour, GC Live, Wes Mitchell and Chris Clark. Really looking forward to it today. I'm sure you guys have so much to get to after another weekend of news with Carolina football. My gut tells me you'll probably mention the Jeremy Pruitt stuff in there as well. So hopefully in an hour when folks are done with us, they'll tune right into you and Chris. Thank you so much as always, my friend. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to a bunch more great stuff coming up this week at Gamecock Central.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon, okay?
Yes, sir. Wes Mitchell, Gamecock Central on Twitter at Wes Mitchell GC. Time for a timeout. When we return, Clemson also made some staff changes. How about Deshaun Watson? We'll talk a little bit more about the NFL. We got some baseball stuff to get out to. You got some hoop stuff. We got Perry Orth at 1:30. So it's a really, really packed final hour here, and we'll try to squeeze it all in over the next 57 minutes. Hang tight. JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Hour 2 coming up. What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston, Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Flamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control. They have been in business for over 4 decades, over 40 years. McFaddenPestControl.com. That's where you can go. Just check them out. Check out their services. If you happen to be a South Carolina fan, you'd be happy to know that Heath Gunther is an alumni. He's a donor, and he's a major, major fan like many of you are. If you're not a South Carolina fan, do not let that deter you from the best pest control service in the Tri-County area. McFaddenPestControl.com. They've been treating homes of people who pull for everybody. And when you do it for over 4 decades, that kind of happens. Very busy folks, but very genuine. They're like a family to us. And they're will be at our house in just a couple of days for our quarterly. They take care of our quarterly. They take care of our termite bond. They take care of our mosquitoes in the summer. And I honestly just can't give them any more of an endorsement than that. McFaddenPestControl.com. They've been doing it for over 3 years at my house, over 40 years in general. Hire them if you can. Just check them out if you're looking to change services, McFaddenPestControl.com. All right, if you're watching to the right of the screen, that's Darren. I'm Jamie. We're here until 2 o'clock. Perry Orth coming up in about 25 minutes or so here on our program. Phone lines, text line, they're open, and they're the same. 843-321-8893. If you'd like to use it, go ahead. It's wide open, 843-321-8893. Pick up a cheesesteak while you're listening to the program at DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley in Avondale. All right, so CJ Spiller is going to move on to the field for Clemson. He, of course, has been in an unpaid off-field role with the Tigers, and the now College Football Hall of Famer will be coaching the running backs. Interesting that Danny Pearman is moving to an off-field role. Danny Pearman's been he was the first hire that Dabo made in 2009. And he's been coaching a long, long time, but he's going to slide to an off-field role, and it looks like Tony Elliott's going to coach the tight ends. Danny's been coaching the tight ends up there, so they've got some changes in the Clemson program as well. And it's always safe to say with any new coaching hire, well, we'll see how it all works out. It's hard to believe that it won't work out with CJ Spiller. I mean, the guy is just a masterful football mind. He communicates well with his players. I've got a feeling he'll develop them just fine. It's probably going to be a little bit easier for him to recruit, to walk into someone's room and say, I played here for a reason. I'm still here. And look at all I did here. You could be me.
I wonder how much impact, I guess would be a word, he had on Travis Etienne. I mean, I know that he's been an unpaid graduate assistant off the field, but look, I mean, it's not hard to make the comparison. Travis Etienne, best running back at Clemson since CJ Spiller, right? They did a lot of things in a similar way. CJ was good catching the ball out of the backfield as well. So, I mean, I wonder how much impact he had on him, but certainly going down into an on-field role. Yeah, I mean, you bring a kid in on a recruiting visit whenever that's allowed again. You sit him down in front of CJ Spiller.
Right.
I did this, and here's how you're going to do this.
Here's how you can do it.
That's a pretty convincing sell.
Absolutely. Dabo shuffling at Clemson, but not replacing necessarily. So certainly the train stays on the tracks for the Tigers, it appears, moving forward. But we'll be interested to see CJ Spiller out there coaching football for Clemson. Speaking of football in Clemson, former quarterback Deshaun Watson, as we all know, not happy in Houston. And there have been links to some teams in the NFL, Jacksonville even, Miami even, which is interesting because Jacksonville has the top pick, and they more than likely at this point are going to take a Clemson Tiger and Trevor Lawrence.
Yes.
Miami's got Tua Tagovailoa, who they took last year, and Deshaun Watson's been linked to both of those. But a report this morning from Ian Rappaport says don't discount the Carolina Panthers, who signed Teddy Bridgewater last year, but Deshaun Watson would, I think, be considered an upgrade, and he certainly would be welcomed in Charlotte. There's a contingent of Tiger fans there, and he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
It'd be a good fit. That's a really good fit. And I tweeted something out over the weekend when there was a report that Deshaun Watson isn't happy. I was like, yeah, really? Like, which one of the 10 statements leading up to this made you believe that? Like, was it him? Was it the former players of the Texans, like Andre Johnson, just rolling the bus over the organization? Like, what was it that tipped you off that he's not happy? I'll be shocked if Watson's in Texas next year.
Or Houston. Stunned.
Yeah,
I'll be stunned. I would say in the same breath, I'll be stunned if he's in Charlotte as well. I at this point don't see the deal getting done, but it's intriguing to think that it could happen. That's just me saying this today. That could all change in an hour. I mean, we'll see what happens. But that would be really good for the Carolina Panthers organization to bring him to town.
It'd be great.
And I wonder what type of money he'd be walking into.
It would, I guess, have to be a trade, which is why the Dolphins, that is appealing if Tua comes back in the trade, because Tua had an up and down first year. I mean, there were times when he was heaped praise upon, and then there were other times, like towards the end of the year, is this guy really ready? Is he an NFL quarterback? Does he have everything that you need to be a successful NFL quarterback? So at least he could come back with whatever else the Dolphins ship back over to Houston. That makes that, I think, somewhat more of a viable spot.
Houston hasn't been able to protect Deshaun Watson for 3 or 4 years now, and you would make it. Tua Tagovailoa would have. This guy is just coming off of injury issues. I personally think Tua has an extensive career left in him in the NFL, as long as he's protected and healthy and confident. Confidence comes with health, and as soon as he is fully confident again, which I know he said he is, but as soon as he is, I think he's going to be around a long time. But we'll see. There could be some movement on that sooner than later over the next, maybe week or so. We'll see what happens.
I'm watching it. I'm on record many times saying I'm not a Tua believer into the NFL. I said that before the draft. So I'm not. Nothing I saw this year changes my opinion. Can he be a good quarterback? Yeah. Is he going to be a franchise-changing Trevor Lawrence? No.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
1:13 on a Monday afternoon, the JB and Goldwater Show. Text line, phone lines, 843-321-8893. Also, any way you're watching or listening to our program, you can also send us a message in whatever chat room you've got up, and Darren can plug it right onto the screen as well. Into hoops we go. Right now, currently in Columbia, there is a ceremony taking place in front of Colonial Life Arena honoring Asia Wilson, the greatest women's basketball player in the history of the program, former National Player of the Year, current star with the Las Vegas Aces. And there is a trophy, a statue that has been built of Asia Wilson in front of Colonial Life Arena. It was unveiled late last week and made official today. And South Carolina tonight will take. We'll have a big game against Arkansas, top 10 matchup, as a matter of fact, in Columbia on ESPN2 at 7 o'clock. So this precedes that. So a nice honor for her. And looking forward to the women's game tonight. In men this weekend, Clemson blown out by Virginia at home by 35.
Yeah.
and it was over in the first half. I know they made, I think, a little run there at the end to make it an 18-point game, but it was over. I mean, they scored 17 points in the first half, the largest win ever in the history of Virginia's program against an AP top 25 team, 35 on the road. That gave the Tigers their second ACC loss of the year. And I think it also kind of catapulted Virginia back into, they're good.
Yeah.
Not just because their defense is always good, but they also scored 85 points, and Clemson's defense this year has been really good. And I know down the stretch in that game, Clemson just kind of threw in the towel, almost like, well, this thing is over. But that was a statement for the Wahoos.
Took the word right out of my mouth. And yes, what happened here, this says more, I think, about Virginia than it does about Clemson. Clemson had a bad day. Virginia had a great day, and you ran into a buzzsaw, but it put Virginia back onto that map because Clemson has been somewhat quietly becoming a little under the radar type darling as they climb the polls. And even us, we're talking about them as one of the best teams in the ACC. Virginia's known for a low scoring, slog it out type, then we'll beat you. And then to come in and throw 80 some on the board. It's an eye-opening win for Virginia. And now maybe a good thing for Clemson, maybe a good thing to just kind of rattle their cages a little bit, put them back in their place a little bit, and kind of refocus as you go down the second half of the season.
Yeah. I totally agree with you there, Darren. Speaking of the polls, Clemson now has dropped to 20th, so they fell 8 slots in the latest AP poll, and Virginia has climbed to number 13, so they climbed 5 spots there. Gonzaga and Baylor still 1 and 2, a combined 26-0 between those two teams. And then rounding out the rest of the top 10 is Villanova, Iowa, Texas, Tennessee at 6. How about the Vols? All the way up to number 6. Michigan at 7, Houston at 8, Kansas at 9, Wisconsin at 10. And of note, Missouri is still in the top 25 at number 19. That's who South Carolina gets tomorrow night from the Show Me State. I believe John Sunvold will be color, and Tom Hart, I think, has the call tomorrow night. Mike Morgan had the call for South Carolina and LSU on Saturday night. And although the Gamecocks dropped that game against the Tigers and the cheater Will Wade himself, 85-80, Carolina's good.
Yeah.
And they're 3-3, they're 1-1, and nobody nationally. I saw John Rothstein did say something nice about him. He said, look, this team just needs to stay and play for a couple of weeks, get Frank Martin back, keep practicing, and it's a clear NCAA tournament team. And forgive me if you think I'm a homer in saying this, he's right. And I said that before the year. They are good. And I know they faded down the stretch. They couldn't hit shots. One key part of that game for me, and I think this is the key part of that game. Honestly, this is no offense to Bruce Shingler, who I thought did a great job filling in for Frank. Frank not being there at the end of that game was enormous for South Carolina. He is one of the best game managing coaches at the end of a close basketball game in the country, and he has been for years. He knows when to take a timeout. He knows when to run a play. Now, it's up to players to execute. No question about that. But he knows how to change the feel of a game quickly, especially down the – he lets guys play until they get to a certain point when he feels like he needs to step in. He's always done this. He's done his whole career. And you could see down the stretch, without his presence there was a little bit of not confusion, but they looked a little lost. Like, generally, this is where Frank steps in and kind of guides us as to what to do next, and it just wasn't there in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, but I echo the sentiment that, and I was texting you this when you watch teams put different talent, different caliber out on the floor than generally you see, it's noticeable. And Carolina's got some dudes out there, and I mean, to be without your head coach, to be playing as sporadically as they're playing, to take on one of the better teams in the league and take them right down to the wire. I agree. Down the stretch, it would have been helpful to have Frank Martin, but I think these guys acquitted themselves well. Now it's just a matter of, can you stay on the floor now? Can you stay healthy? Can we get some type of stretch going where they can consistently play and get a little bit of a rhythm? And then these late game situations, you're not constantly looking over your shoulder for added instruction because you've done it a couple more times. Now, Frank is on the trip to Missouri.
Yeah.
So he will be there tomorrow.
Yeah, Frank will be then that'll be enormous for South Carolina basketball. And LSU's good. LSU's good. You know, they got a bunch of really good players down there. I don't know how much money they're worth or what type of cars they're driving and stuff like that, but they've got a bunch of really good players down in Baton Rouge. Forgive me, I know I'm taking shots at Will Wade today, but he deserves it after he just walked off the floor and yelled at officials and didn't even go to just fist pound Bruce Shingler. That was BS. That was just flat BS.
Yep.
I mean, and he was standing there. Bruce Shingler was standing there like, I don't know if they were going to shake hands or not. I know people are trying to avoid stuff like that these days with COVID and the whole 9 yards. I get it. The game was over. You won the game. I know he was frustrated about the flagrant that was called on, I forget the kid's name. It was a hook and hold is what they called. And that's why they called that. It was a hook and hold underneath the basket. Like the rule, don't like the rule. They've had an emphasis on those the last few years. I didn't see it. Mike Morgan, actually Mark Wise saw it, and Mike Morgan pointed it out on the broadcast. He said, "Oh, good eyes. I didn't even see that." So that's what they called. He was ticked off about it, but the game was over, and you won the game. And you have the opposing coach standing there waiting to say, "Nice job," and he spent his entire time yelling at officials and avoiding the Gamecocks bench, and then just ushered his team to the locker room. Get out of here with that crap. Who does he think he is?
You might not be shaking hands, but if you've watched any sporting event, this is not basketball exclusive. The end of the game, these coaches are fist pounding, elbow bumps, some acknowledgement of, hey, good game. Will Wade can be upset with the officials all he wants. You still don't walk off the court like that. That's part one. Part two, LSU had about 20 more free throws in South Carolina.
Yeah.
So you want to complain all you want, go ahead, complain. But you won by 5 and had almost 20 more free throws taken.
Yeah. And you know what? I've probably fallen into this cellar there where some of the fans are, and I probably should have my head a little bit more above water than some of the junk that's out there being spewed about Will Wade. But like personally, in my opinion, his shtick is just over for me. I mean, they're really good. He is a really good basketball coach. I can't go as far as to say he's a really good recruiter because there's enough information out there that says he's done it the wrong way in a couple of instances. I'm just done with him. When I see him, I'm like, whatever. I don't care to see the guy. I can't believe that he's actually still coaching. But that to me was like, I give all the credit to LSU. The last 7 minutes of that game, they played very good basketball. They shut South Carolina down in certain parts of the game. Carolina couldn't hit any shots, and that's what did them in. And LSU just kept going right back to the well, the things that were working, and they were working. They hit their free throws, and they won the game. They beat South Carolina. There's no – but the way that he acted, I'm done with it.
You're not alone. I mean, I've said many, many times that I like Will Wade as a person from covering him, but you're not alone in that thought because there's nothing positive about Will Wade that's out there right now. It's nothing but negative stuff, be it recruiting, be it his antics, so that wears on you. I mean, it wears on anyone. I'm tired of seeing it. I kind of just want to, wish you would just go back to being the fun guy to be around that I know. I mean, I haven't talked to or been around Will Wade now in years. It'd be nice for me to see him acting the way that he was when I knew him and covered him and liked him, because it doesn't seem like it's exactly the same guy.
He's not a likable guy right now.
No.
There's no question about that. Real quick here around the state and hoops. And then I've got another, we want to jump back into this Jeremy Pruitt situation, have some information to get out on that as well. We do have Perry Orth ahead at 1:30. But quickly around the state, in the Big South, 4 teams, in the state of South Carolina are members of the Big South in basketball. Winthrop, if you haven't paid attention, is 13-0. They're 10-0 in the league, and they play Tuesday and Wednesday this week at Presbyterian, who's also a member of the Big South. They're 1-3 on the year in the league, 3-5 overall. South Carolina Upstate, they'll host Charleston Southern tomorrow night and Wednesday. They're 3-11 overall, but 3-5 in the league. And CSU's just had a tough go, but they did, of course, at the beginning of the year, had an opt-out of their best player. But 1-11, 0-8 are the Bucks out there in North Charleston. Speaking of Charleston, the Cougs lost both this weekend to Northeastern. Tough weekend down at TD Arena. Next Saturday and Sunday, they're on the road at William & Mary, but just 5-8 on the year, 3-3 in the CAA, Darren, and it's been a tough go of it.
They'd been playing a little better. This was a big weekend for them to get Northeastern twice, and they got clipped twice, like just barely. I think Sunday's game was a 2-point loss or a 4-point loss, but it was tough. They had a chance to cement themselves towards the top of the league, and now they're back at 500.
Citadel plays tonight. UNC Greensboro at Greensboro on ESPN Plus. If you'd like to watch it, 8-2, and their 2 losses have come in the last 2 games as well. They just lost to VMI 110-102. old Duggar, 212 points in that game. He's coached both teams. He knows how they play, and Citadel couldn't get enough, couldn't muster enough. You would think they could, but they just couldn't stop VMI.
That was the problem
in that ball game, firing from everywhere. And Citadel now 1-2, 8-2 overall. Furman 4-0 in the SoCon, 10-3 overall. And how about Wofford, 5-1, 8-4 overall. Wofford's got Western Carolina coming up Saturday. Furman this week, a double dip. They've got VMI and then at ETSU. So they're traveling all over the place. Are the Paladins. And then in the Sun Belt, Coastal 3-2, 9-3. They just lost to Georgia State. They've got Troy coming up Friday and Saturday. But keep your eyes on Coastal, Furman, Wofford, maybe even the Citadel. We'll see if they can get hot and stay hot the rest of the year. Winthrop, Carolina, Clemson, bunch of good basketball. Maybe a year where there's 3 or 4 teams in the NCAA tournament from South Carolina.
Here's a betting tip. I decided on, I guess it was Saturday when the Citadel played VMI, that I'm taking the over until for every Citadel basketball game until that costs me.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it Saturday, but Saturday I made the rule for myself because the over under in that game was like 169, 170, and it ended up 200 something. The Citadel scoring points. And when you play against the Citadel, you have to play that type of style. Greensboro's got talent. They do. So they're going to get up and down the floor. I don't know what the over under is. I haven't looked yet, but I'm going to check into that.
Yeah. Check into that. Take the over.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, back to Tennessee quickly. If you're just tuning in and missed the news of the day, Jeremy Pruitt is out in Knoxville, and Phil Fulmer is retiring in Knoxville as well. So major changes on the way. Some are speculating that Kevin Steele will be the interim coach in 2021. And they'll take their time to find the right athletics director, whom then will take his time to find the right head coach. There are some speculations out there about that. We'll see. According to Bruce Feldman with The Athletic, Peyton Manning will have a large role in the search process and will have great influence on who the next coach will be. And Peyton Manning also, if you remember, supported Greg Schiano to be the coach at Tennessee. You wonder if folks in Knoxville wish he was the coach in Knoxville.
If he wanted it, I would think he would be a prime candidate, even though he's never coached. But it's Peyton Manning. I mean, it's Peyton Manning.
And Peyton Manning is, if he's got something to say up there, folks are listening.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some speculation that Peyton Manning is a large proponent of Adam Gase being a candidate for this job. Adam Gase, of course, recently fired by the New York Jets. We'll see. But Tennessee, certainly, there's a lot of information still out there around this position and this situation in Knoxville, but it is certainly something to keep an eye on.
164.5 is the over under for Citadel and UNCG. 164.5.
And just a little while ago, not to cut you off there, but
that's okay.
But thank you for adding that. Make some money on Darren. Take the over.
Yeah, and if you lose,
tonight's
it's
164.5.
not my fault. Don't listen to me.
I mentioned to Wes Mitchell earlier, what potential impacts could there be with South Carolina specifically? I asked it in the sense of the coaching staff because of PTSD for maybe many Carolina fans as it pertained to what happened just recently with Auburn last week. And neither one of us anticipate much changing with this staff moving forward, although they still have to make an O-line coach. However, 4-star wide receiver Jordan Mosley has already now decommitted from the Tennessee program per his Twitter release. He was very much in the mix to come to South Carolina. Keep in mind that signing period is coming up in February, and Carolina needs wide receivers. So we'll see what happens with Jordan Mosley, but he's one of the better wideout prospects in college football, and he chose Tennessee over the Gamecocks. He's decommitted, and he's back out there, and we'll see if that means anything for Carolina's recruiting class.
Bet you Justin Stepp has already reached out.
Yeah, I would probably venture a guess. That's pretty true. All right, Patriots Point presents the anthem daily at 1 o'clock here, the national anthem on the JB and Goldwater show. Hopefully you enjoy that. Hopefully you enjoy Patriots Point, patriotspoint.org for more information. If you'd like to purchase tickets to go visit the museum, you should head to patriotspoint.org. Their website is awesome. It tells you all about what you can see over there. I've been a bunch, and if you haven't been in a while, there's always something new to take a look at over at Patriots Point. The Laffey, the Clamagore, the Vietnam War exhibit, and, of course, the USS Yorktown that paints the skyline, the city of Charleston, right there on the banks of the Cooper River in Mount Pleasant. patriotspoint.org for more information. All right, time for a timeout. When we return, former South Carolina quarterback Perry Orth will check in. Camp coming up this week. We'll tell you how you can get better. Also going to ask him about the 2023 class of quarterbacks. You're like, what? It's 2021. Yeah, I know that. I get it. But quarterbacks are always being recruited, and he just might know some of them. And we'll also get his take on some of the hires recently made at South Carolina. He's a former player. You know this whole former player talk we've been having for the last month or so? He might have a comment or two that's worthwhile. So hang tight. The JB and Goldwater show returns in a moment with former Carolina quarterback Perry Orth.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes Meet Up.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what? I can always keep up with the news back in South Carolina because I've got the JB and Goldwater Show. Thank you, JB and Darren, for being live, loud, and online.
Your love lifting me higher than I've ever been lifted before.
All right, final segment on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater show, protected by McFadden Pest Control. Darren Goldwater, Jamie Bradford. We're here until 2 o'clock and joined by former South Carolina quarterback Perry Orth. What's up, bud? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, man. Hope you guys are doing well.
We are. Yeah, a little bit of a breaking news day around here. Literally, as we came on the air, the news out of Knoxville, Jeremy Pruitt will not be retained. He's being fired, essentially, and Phil Fulmer is stepping down as athletics director. So crazy times in the SEC, Perry. We'll get to the Gamecocks in just a moment. Want to ask you also about quarterback recruiting in this state, but you train quarterbacks, and we'll kind of tie in these conversations. QB1athletics.com is where you can go and check out a revamped, beautiful-looking website with a weird-looking Perry on the front giving a thumbs up. But coming up this weekend, you've got a couple of camps. Tell us about those and how folks can get signed up to get better.
Yeah, so doing a skills camp Friday night in Columbia. So it may be difficult for the folks in the Low Country, especially considering we're doing a camp down your way, our annual gyration station. We do one in the spring, early spring, I guess now, and then in the summer where Steven and I come together and do our now, which is crazy, our 5th year of doing these camps. And we do film sessions. We do on-field specific work where we tie the field or the film stuff with on-the-field work. We do all quarterback-specific drills. Steven and I are able to kind of share our stories and our paths to where we got to where we're at now. So, man, it's just been a great turnout. Every time we come to Charleston, we have a blast. We'll be at First Baptist down in James Island, and really looking forward to it. You know, we used that location this summer, and Coach Johnny Waters was super to allow us to use that facility. And Bailey Hart will be helping us coach as well. He was a quarterback coach at First Baptist this year, and he did a heck of a job with their quarterback. He's a big-time player, and you know, barring the COVID situation, potential of winning a state title, super unfortunate, but Bailey did a heck of a job with the quarterbacks there, so he'll be out there as well. So, you know, we'll have the full onslaught of coaches, and looking forward to having a great time.
Well, what is the date of the Charleston camp?
Yeah, so we it'll be this Saturday. So
Okay.
we're roughly 5 days out.
And now, how can folks sign up for that?
Yeah, sign up is at camp. So just show up at about 9:30 on Saturday morning out at First Baptist. We'll have our registration table set there. We'll do our, you know, I'm the insurance guy, so we'll button up the liability and COVID waivers and make sure those are nice and signed and completed. And we'll dive right into camp, get done about 2:30, 3 o'clock. And, you know, in Charleston, we always have a good turnout, but with having 3 really experienced quarterback coaches, you know, we can take and handle about 30 to 35 quarterbacks. So, you know, splitting up into 8 to 10 quarterbacks per coach. So kids really do get hands-on attention for about 5 hours, where you're really not going to get that kind of all-day attention for $120 is what we're charging people. So you're looking at not even $20 for an hour, which, I mean, for the kind of coaching that the kids are about to get, you just don't find it anywhere. And that's why we've had such a great turnout, because we're not in it to go out and become millionaires by overcharging kids and giving kids a bad camp. We do it to see the growth of quarterbacks in the state. And I have, you know, now getting ready to start my 5th year now as a coach. I mean, I've got kids all over the country now in college, and kids traveling from all the way from Florida to visit one of these camps. It's insane. And, you know, we did our camp down in Tampa, and we had a kid drive from Fort Myers 2.5 hours because he had seen our posts on social media, and he had been following us since we really started doing these camps together. And when we announced we were having one in Florida, wanted to make the drive 2.5 hours to spend the day with us. So that's just the kind of pull that we're getting now. And it's been a great turnout, man. We love it. That's why we continue to do it.
Perry, so it'll be, first of all, it'll be you, Bailey, and Steven on Saturday in Charleston, right? That's number one.
Yeah.
That's number one. Oh, God bless you. When does Steven get into town? On Thursday?
Steven will be in town Friday morning. He's picking up a few guys on his way up and bringing a few of the Florida guys to compete with some of these South Carolina guys.
Okay. And so what is in camp? It's $120, and you provide lunch and things like that as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll have lunch for the kids throughout the day. Obviously, we encourage them to bring their own water just because of what's going on with COVID. Man, we do everything from footwork to pocket movement to in-game analysis to 2-minute drill to film study to, you know, kind of mental coaching and prepping these kids what it's like to play the position. I mean, you're not going to find this anywhere.
Well, one of the questions I have, and look, I've known Perry for a while, and we've talked about these camps a ton. I know, but as a matter of fact, my cousin's going to these camps. One of the questions, you know, that I'm going to ask you to kind of to give the public a little bit more information here is, when you see these quarterbacks, you know, what type of questions or what type of training are they generally most in need of? I mean, do you get some talented kids out there that just don't quite understand, basic offensive skills? I mean, you know, I'm trying to expand here a little bit. Where do kids need to improve the most when they come to your camps? I'm sure there's a bunch of them who have a bunch of different skill sets, but where do they generally need to improve the most?
The form. the form of the motion. I find just some horrendous throwing motions. It doesn't matter where they come from. I mean, you see some of these people, they just don't, and it doesn't make them dumb. They just don't know, just because you don't know doesn't mean you're an idiot. I mean, Stephen and I not only have been able to be coached by incredible people, but we've learned some things now as a coach. I mean, and, just to toot my own horn as I prep my camp, I've coached a team. Like, I've been a part of a team as a quarterback coach for 3 seasons now. And 2 of those have resulted in my quarterback being first team All-State in their respective class. And it's not because I'm this quarterback guru. It's because I get kids that are eager to play and work hard, teach them the proper way of doing things, whether it's prepping mentally for a game or teaching the proper form and footwork, or it doesn't really matter what it is. It's just giving the kids, in my opinion, professional coaching at the high school level. And that's what the end result is. And it just, again, it's just a reason why these camps have turned into what they've turned into. We'll see anywhere between 20 to 25 quarterbacks alone on Saturday in Charleston, and in Columbia for our skills camp. We'll see anywhere between 40 and 50. And I can say that confidently because in the previous 4 years, that's what we've gotten. And who knows what it'll be this year. It could be less because of COVID, could be more because kids are tired of being trapped in the house. So we'll find out.
QB1athletics.com, Perry Orth, former quarterback in South Carolina, joining us here at 1:40 on a Monday afternoon. And I'd also like to add to that conversation, the coaches of these kids, especially some of these kids, once they're getting up into high school or they're close to it, that they support them going to camp and learning underneath Perry and Bailey and Steven and your brother Evan. I know he's down there in Florida and guys like that. I mean, this isn't Perry doesn't battle with coaches. He's trying to help them. These high school teams. I'm sure you have a great relationship with many of the high school coaches across South Carolina because you've worked with their quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And it's funny because today, we're not technically working, came into the office to just do a few things, mainly prep for the camp on Saturday and Friday. But one of the things on my list was text the high school coaches just as a reminder about camp. And I've developed a relationship with these coaches of, hey, listen, I'm not here to tell you or tell you that you're wrong or your kid that you're, whatever. I'm here to help your quarterbacks play better ultimately. And coaches know that. They hear me talk about it on the radio. They hear me, they've seen the kids, come back and are grossly improved. And they say, I was working with Perry, and Perry, they'll say, 1, it was great. But 2, he told me to tell you that I'm not here to step on their toes. I'm here to help. And that's what's got me, in the door with Dustin Curtis over at Flora. And, because I sell insurance for a living, they know I have no skin in the game. If I've probably gotten this offseason 5 offers to whether it be quarterback coach or OC of respective high schools across South Carolina. And it's not because I'm awesome. It's because I've developed a relationship with these guys to show them that, hey, listen, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you. I don't care if I volunteer at AC Flora during the fall. I mean, yeah, we'll play you and I'll want to win just because I'm a part of that program, but I want your quarterback. I want our quarterbacks to go back and forth. One of the most special moments for me was last fall. We played Chapin High School, and Roger Padroni was one of my day one guys, one of the first kids I've ever trained him for 3 years. One of the best quarterbacks Chapin's ever had, ever. He'd be playing in college, except for he had a terrible back injury, which is not allowing him to play anymore. Anyway, we ended up beating Chapin in like a 42-35 game. Well, Roger threw for 5 touchdowns and 400 plus yards, and my quarterback ran and combined for 5 touchdowns and 300 plus yards. And combined, my quarterbacks scored 10 touchdowns in the ball game. And so, we lost, we won the game and my buddy lost and the other team lost, but, getting pictures with them after the game and even their opposing coach coming up to me and be like, man, great work with Roger. As you can see, obviously he's playing really well, so it's a good experience. And I know Bailey's already seeing that down in the low country and Garcia doesn't coach down there in Tampa, but the amount of kids, he doesn't do a great job of posting on social media. The amount of kids that he's put into schools and have become great football players through his instruction. The list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, certainly. Again, QB1athletics.com. You'll also be able to check out many of the quarterbacks that they have trained that have made their way into college football. Guys like Hunter Helms at Clemson, DeCarrion Joyner, even though he's not a quarterback anymore at South Carolina. How about Jackson Muschamp? They've worked with Jackson. Ryan Helinski, Tanner McGee down at South Alabama. Of course, that's a connection to Perry's brother. These guys, and I could go on and on. You can see the list for yourself. Just head to QB1athletics.com for much more information. Again, coming up in Charleston this week, but also in Columbia on Friday night. People watch and listen to our show from everywhere, Perry. So I want to make sure that that everybody knows that you can access it in multiple ways. And if you've got questions, head to the website, QB1athletics.com. Submit your question there. Find Perry on Twitter at PerryOrth10. Send him a note. He'll get right back to you, certainly. And I know this is going to be a great weekend training quarterbacks once again, QB1 Athletics. And Steven Garcia is coming to town. You never know what you learn out of him. All right, Perry, we'll spend the last few minutes here talking about South Carolina. And I tell you what, strictly as it pertains to quarterbacks, I mean, we've gotten the news over the last couple of weeks that Ryan Helinski is going to leave the program. Colin Hill will not be returning either. And as it appears right now, it's going to be Luke Doty's show moving forward. Colton Gothard is on campus. He'll be a true freshman later on this year in 2021. They're looking to add another one or two to this list. Maybe this kid out of St. Francis. We'll see. But how things have unfolded and how things have changed, it's wild. Only in a couple of months, Carolina right now just returning one scholarship quarterback from last season.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's Luke Doty's team. It's his show. If I were him, I'd be thrilled. Not the fact that it's an empty quarterback room, but that it's my team, and I kind of hold the future of the program and the ball in my hands. Whether it's the things I do on and off the field or directly, on the field. So, no, he's young, but he got some experience. He's heading into his sophomore year and can really grow and become the quarterback, a lot of folks expected him to become. So I think that's a huge bonus. The rumor on the street is that we're going to land the kid from St. Francis, and we signed the kid out of Charlotte. And, so that will add some depth to the room, but and some competition. But I think we've got good pieces in place. I think with all the chatter with the coaches leaving and all the ins and outs of kind of what's going on, people go, oh my God, the state of the program is a disaster. Well, we haven't played any games. New staff is in. They're recruiting right now. They've met with all the players. They're getting to know everybody. They're getting to figure out where is what in Columbia. Where's the bathroom in the facility? You got to give it time, but there's players there that are experienced that can help. You look at the defensive line, they've got people in place. Again, Luke's got experience. We've got a stable of running backs. Offensive line's returning. Hopefully we'll be able to get some more playmakers at receiver. Got the kid from Georgia Tech. Apparently the St. Francis kid is going to be bringing a 6'8" wide receiver. I mean, they're doing what they can with what they've got right now and the cards they were dealt. One thing I'm excited to hear is they're not going to talk about the cupboard being bare or what was left to them. They're going to go out and they're going to play and they're going to coach the way that they know how. And the best part about it as a former Letterman is that they're filling the staff with guys that love South Carolina, that want to be there, but also filling former Letterman, filling positions with former Letterman to show, like, listen, we want guys that want to be Gamecocks. And when you fill the team full of former players, or the staff full of former players, there's more skin in the game. There's more. There's a little bit more focus. There's more determination. There's more. We're going to do whatever it takes, to get the job done. It's like owning a house versus renting a house. When you rent a house, you want to take care of it because it's just what you do. But when you own it, man, you're going to vacuum it. You're going to cut the yard once a week. You're going to do all the little things that you probably wouldn't do if you rented, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, no question. Absolutely. And this is Shane Beamer's house ultimately. By the way, quick note here from Steve Fink. Shane will join the media tomorrow at 1:00 to introduce new coaches, Torian Gray, Jimmy Lindsay, and Luke Day, and they all have press conferences immediately following. Still no word on the offensive line situation at South Carolina, but it is Shane Beamer's house. I want to ask you about that. So let's try to lump all this into one conversation here. Here's what's coming to South Carolina. Shane Beamer is bringing some of what he's learned under Lincoln Riley. They've hired Marcus Satterfield from the Carolina Panthers, who's now spent a year with Joe Brady, but has spent a bunch of his career with Matt Rule. You got Justin Stepp coming over from Arkansas. He just spent a year under Kendall Briles. They're going to try to change this offense as much as they can based on the personnel that they have, Perry, to be better. I mean, to be more today, to more what we're used to seeing in the sport of college football. A little bit more flying around, a little bit more zazz, a little bit more fun, and it looks like Luke Doty is going to be that guy. We don't know anything, like you said. We haven't seen one practice. But what at least are you anticipating as a former college quarterback? You played under Steve Spurrier. You played under Will Muschamp. You know this game inside and out. You know now these guys, and you understand their backgrounds. You've seen the type of offenses they're coming from. What are you anticipating we'll start to see and hear about as spring practice rolls around?
Yeah, I just expect offensively, I expect a little bit more creativity than just the 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I know last year we were limited based off of the receiving core we had. But with all that being said, we've got some pieces in place to shake it up a little bit, especially with a mobile quarterback, and now two with Marshawn Lloyd coming back, really, really talented running backs. I'd like to see the ball pushed down the field a little bit more, but there's different ways to do that than just having everybody run down the field. Watching the Chiefs play, I think they do an awesome job of pushing the ball vertically. The receivers really know that, I may be running a vertical here, but if I'm running right into a safety, there's no need to do that. I'm just going to break it down and settle it down into the zone. Different stuff like that. A few more razzle-dazzle, a few trick plays here and there, but just, a little bit more pedal to the metal type offense. I just feel like the last probably 4 or 5 years we've played not to lose, and we can't do that. We got to play to win. And you may lose a few times doing that, but you're going to win a lot more than you lose. Coach Spurrier proved that. So I'd like to see that out of the offense. And then defense, it is what it is, man. I mean, cover 3 is cover 3. You got to go out there and fly around and go attack the football. I just think that we played hesitant. Again, not to lose instead of playing to win. We did play a lot of man coverage when we had some good corners, but there are so many different defenses that you can play. I think as a quarterback, you want to see defenses disguise a lot, makes it really difficult on you as a player. And I don't think we did a lot of that. And so, keeping calls basic, but understanding that we've got to disguise and not show exactly what we're in. I'd love to see that. And, I don't know much about Clayton White. I believe that his name, right?
Yep.
New defense coordinator.
Yes.
I don't know much about his defenses, but I know he was nominated 3 times as top assistant of the year. So you're doing something right. You don't accidentally fall into that category. So.
Oh, no question. No question. And this staff you mentioned a moment ago, Perry, has been filled out with some guys that well. I mean, you know Eric Kimry, and he's going to get his first crack at coaching college football. Byron Jerideau is coming home. Shaq Wilson is coming home. And, I think that we can anticipate there's going to be some other roles and some other off-field roles that will be filled by former Gamecocks. When you have these conversations, you're in these circles with many of these guys that Shane is considering for his staff. When you have these conversations, what are you hearing? What do you hear from these guys? Their level of excitement, their thoughts about the program. Is there anything interesting you can pass along?
Yeah, I mean, they're just pumped to be here. I mean, they obviously are thrilled about being an SEC coach, but there's more to it than that. I think that there's something special about South Carolina. I know Coach Beamer was here the first time things are really starting to become special, and so he wants to get back to that. If you go on YouTube and you type in the sandstorm from some of those games during that era, and Connor said it best, man. Williams-Brice and South Carolina football is special when it's rolling, and it can be again. And I don't think that we're far off. I really don't. We're a few special players away. I think we've got the staff in place. We've got guys that are bought in. We've got the resources. We're a few special players away from being a really average team to being a team competing for the playoff and competing for for the SEC East every single year. We've got the resources there. I think that, this could be a hot take, but I do think Clemson's going to take a step back next year, not because of any specific reason. I just don't see the same talent level. I'm not saying we're going to beat them, but I'm saying I just don't see the same kind of players coming up in their system that they've had, from the previous years. DJ, whatever his last name is, I don't know how to pronounce it, so I don't want to butcher it. But he's not Trevor Lawrence, and that's just a fact. He'll be a good player for him, but I think that there's an opportunity to re-win the state in recruiting. That's the point I'm trying to make there. It's not a bash at Clemson. We're trying. We've got to re-win the state recruiting, and it starts by getting players that are bought in. And understanding the idea we can get to a level that Clemson's at. We just got to get players that are going to change the program, and that's the message you've got to pitch. And next year is going to be a huge year in the recruiting pitch. If we can go out there and go 6-6 after a 3-win season or a 4-win season and then a 2-win season and match that win record in one season, I mean, you right there, you're already on a good track. So I'm excited. I think our fans should be. Obviously we're not going to go out and win the national title next year, but I think we can put together a good team to go out and compete in every ball game we're playing.
Final, you got about 15 seconds here. Do you feel, as a former player, do you just feel different now about this program as opposed to maybe a few months ago? Does it just feel better? Yeah, it does. It does.
Anytime you have a kind of the ending the way everything went this past season, and you're able to clean house and get a fresh start, it gives you a little hope. And then as a former player, just seeing all the guys of the backing that our program has, of groups of lettermen that are getting together to help support it, man, it's just been great. And to be able to be a part of it is a big reason why I stayed in South Carolina. It's a family, and you want to see your family do well, and we're excited, man.
Well, we feel like you're part of our family, and we like seeing you do well. QB1athletics.com, Friday in Columbia, Saturday here in the low country of South Carolina. If you're a quarterback and you want to get better, they'll make you better, much better. Perry Orth, Stephen Garcia, Bailey Hart will all be in on it coming up this weekend. So really fired up to see you get these guys, see you continue to train these young bucks across the state of South Carolina. Perry, on that note, we'll let you run, my friend, but thank you so much. Looking forward to a great weekend for you. We'll talk soon as things continue to evolve for Carolina football and get you back in here for another take or two before long, okay?
Sounds good, guys. Y'all take care.
Yes, sir. There you go. Our friend Perry Orth, former quarterback at South Carolina. All right, again, the news of the day, Jeremy Pruitt out in Knoxville, Phil Fulmer retiring in Knoxville as the day unfolds. I'm sure more information will be available, and we'll have you covered on that tomorrow. Real quick on the national what day is it calendar. We all know it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
It is.
It's also National Michigan Day, so celebrate with Jim Harbaugh somewhere.
Man, one really good thing and one Michigan Day.
Michigan Day. It's National Winnie the Pooh Day.
Much better than Michigan.
And it's National Thesaurus Day.
There you go.
Yeah, National Thesaurus Day.
All right.
So
which is now online anyway.
Learn something. Yeah, that sucks, man.
Everything. The other day I walked in, Grayson's learning math. She's in second grade. She's got a calculator with her. I was like, no, that's not how this works.
All right, real quick before the music hits here. Also, the top 25 for college baseball, preseason top 25 from D1 baseball has been issued as well. South Carolina checks in preseason at number 18. Number 1, Florida. And no Clemson in this one, no Coastal Carolina, 9 SEC teams, 7 ACC teams, 5 Big 12 teams, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Same old guys in baseball, man.
Let me tell you something, though. Don't discount Clemson just because they're not in the top 25. Their recruiting class last year was really, really good. They're going to be good.
Gamecocks are probably better than 18 also.
Yeah, I've said that for a while. But it's the SEC, and it's tough. But Carolina baseball, I got a feeling they're back. Much more on that in the coming weeks, I assure you, with college baseball right around the corner. Thanks to Wes Mitchell and Perry Orth. Thanks to Darren Goldwater.
Thank you.
All of you for watching and listening to our program. Have a marvelous Monday afternoon. Derek Scott joins us tomorrow. So does Gene Sapikoff. Right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.